To Flatback 4 podcast with me, Andy Maguire and Scott Eaglin. And joining us this week, we've got two really special guests on, which we wanted to do for a while now. Let's talk Tottenham. We've got Gareth and Chris. How are you guys doing? You all right?
Yeah, we're doing good, gents.
Good. And we've been talking about this for a while because we talk about Spurs quite a lot on this podcast because they're kind of a team that you want to get excited about, but then they kind of do disappoint a little bit. But we did something about Mourinho the other week, and maybe as the honeymoon period gone. But talking to you boys and the fact that we haven't had fans in the stadium, how have we? Me and Scott, we've missed it terribly. That atmosphere and whatnot. How's it been for you boys watching Spurs this season when you've kind of been in a not a transitional period, but you've got that Mourinho effect that should be really kicking in, but maybe has not happened?
Yeah.
First question. Go on, Gareth.
For me, I'm getting more enjoyment watching my son playing FIFA. It's the lack of fans. I think a lot of teams, including Tottenham, are missing the 12th man. But also, we do have quite a critical fan base, even at the ground. So you'd think maybe because of how our fan base can be so critical at the ground, being seen it firsthand, you'd think it potentially be a positive thing. Well, it's a double-edged sword, maybe. The Mourinho side of things, I think it's fantastic. He's there. I think what Poch did with Tottenham and the way he took them, even further, without actually winning a trophy, I think made us an appealing option to a manager like Mourinho. I'm a big fan of Mourinho. I think he just needs a little bit more backing for the right players. And, once the fans are backing, Mourinho and the team can turn it on a bit more because we'll be there to cheer them on.
Yeah, like we said, the fans do play a massive part. We've seen it maybe like with the Chef U down there. They played so well last year, and I think they've really felt the hit of having no fans. For a Leeds fan, though, it's quite great seeing them. But we do think Chris Wilder is a good manager, and I do think that certain scenarios of clubs, that fan base really does take you to that next level, or just gives you a bit of a boost. Chris, obviously, when you hear Spurs and you hear about Daniel Levy and whatnot, do you think that Mourinho has been given this? I don't know, the transfer budget and the plays that he needs to do. Like, you brought Højbjerg in, who's actually turned out to be a little bit of a gem. But do you think that he's actually got what he needs, or do you think this summer is probably an even bigger or actually a pivotal point in the Mourinho thing, especially if you don't win a trophy? Because you are still in with a shout of 2 trophies, but this summer you've got to get it right. And actually, something I want to really ask you: do you hold on to Kane if you don't win a trophy? Because he's 28 in July.
But we don't win a trophy, we don't have to worry about the transfer budget because it comes from Kane, doesn't it? So
fair play. Okay.
I think
it's Bale all over again.
Yeah. I think as long as Daniel Levy is making transfer decisions, we're going to be in this situation. Liverpool basically not won the title, but they invested the Coutinho money in Van Dijk and Alisson, 75 million a pop or whatever. 150 million for Kane, sake of example. I don't see Daniel Levy spending all of that.
10 million.
I don't. But whereas I don't see Kane, I think Kane's going to stay for another year, and I only make that because I agree with an article that I read. Because of COVID, who's got the money to spend 150 million pound on Harry Kane? It doesn't matter whether he wants to leave. It doesn't matter, because clubs like Barcelona, they're financially in the crap at the moment. They haven't got the money for it. Where's he going to go? He's only going to go to a Madrid, a Juventus.
Yeah.
I don't think
have done money.
They have, but do you honestly see Tottenham selling him to one of our biggest rivals?
I made this point a few weeks back, didn't I, Andy, about the sort of style that Kane plays. I don't think there's any sort of club that is maybe suited for a big man up front like Kane. I mean, you look at sort of Liverpool, Man United, they sort of play with that 3 up front without really a big man up front, maybe like a false 9, but there's no real club, Barca, Real, there's no real club sort of suited for Kane, really.
I think if Real Madrid do get Mbappe and Pochettino at PSG, they'll get a lot of money from Mbappe, and then the money's there for Kane, and then obviously the relationship with Pochettino, and I mean they will win the French league generally, PSG. Yeah. But yeah.
Well, just think about it, boys. Moise Ken's out there at the minute, and he's just bagged his 17th goal of the season today, and you just think, imagine what Kane would do out there.
I'll be honest. I part of me thinks that Kane has to go. And I thought this under Pochettino because he was too reliant on Kane. Take the Champions League final, for example. If we were managers, and if we were, we wouldn't be sat here doing this. We'd be earning, mega money elsewhere. But why would you bring in a not 100% Kane, right, for a man who's just banged you in a hat trick in the semi-final?
It was
in the last 45 minutes. His confidence is flying, right? I think Spurs have too much of a reliance because you look at like when Kane was injured and they brought Son into the middle. Under Poch, Son did brilliantly. But how often did he lose his way when Kane came back into the side? Because he was pushed back out to the side because everything then evolved around Harry Kane. We're not a one-man club, but the football we play seems to evolve around one man. And I think that by losing Harry Kane, we will have no choice to become more of a team looking for the rest of the squad. It's like prime example, Vinicius, okay, in the game against Wolfsburg, and in in the games he has played, he's made some brilliant runs. Now, I'm going to go back to Soldado. Soldado came in, okay. Now, Soldado didn't do anything for us, but I used to watch the football he played, and the runs he made, he'd get into space, he'd get between the two defenders, and if they'd looked for him, he'd have got the ball. Same with Vinicius, if they'd have looked for him, but they're not. It's not Harry. So they don't. They think they've got to take an extra 2 touches. They think they've got to then play it out wide to Son or to Aurier on the overlap. So I think, as much as I'd hate to see him go, because he's been amazing for us and he is our talisman, but part of me thinks that it might be a necessary evil for Spurs to be able to progress that little bit further.
Do you know when you've talked about the Kane thing with the Champions League final? Me and Scott, we've spoke about this before, but imagine if he wouldn't have played Kane and say he'd have lost heavily. The whole like devil's advocate argument would have been, well, why didn't you play your best player? I know he's not. Even if you only get 60% Harry Kane, you're still getting a great player. So,
but a 60% Harry Kane for the last half an hour is better.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Give more of the chance. He's already flying. He's banged in a hat trick. He's on cloud 9. Give him the chance. Give him 45 minutes to maybe do something. But also, the way that rule change came in, giving away a penalty in the first minute, Liverpool sat back anyway. So they made it even more difficult. So the problem you've then got is you've played Kane who's 60%. You've got, in my opinion, a dodgy handball. Okay, let's be honest. I still think it was. If you look at where Mane was looking, he wasn't looking to cross that ball. He saw Sissoko's arm go up, and he went, "Oh, here we go." If you look at where that ball was going to go, there was no Liverpool player. But that's by the by. It's been and gone. But the minute they sat back, I think regardless whether you played Moore or Kane, it was going to be difficult.
Talk to me, Chris, because you talk about one-man team, but you've had a player this season who's only started 7 games in Dele Alli. What's gone on there? Because he's looked. I mean, Wolfsburg weren't the best opposition. I think all 4 of us could have had a good play in that game. I think we'd have done all right. I think we'd have got set. Yeah, just the 4 of us.
3 you could. I haven't got the legs anymore.
But Dele Alli, he was fantastic. Scored a great goal and whatnot. But Mourinho does this thing when he goes into a club and he seems to have an issue with a player. It seems to be Dele. We saw in the documentary there were a few things going on there. What's gone on there? What do you think is going to happen? He was linked with PSG. He didn't go in the end, and now all of a sudden he's coming back in. But maybe it might be the right time. But what has gone on there? As you guys as fans looking at it?
I think he's suffering in the same way that Winks is. They both got their debut from Pochettino, and I think Pochettino is kind of a nice guy. Like if something went wrong, it's like, you're still my guy. Mourinho is completely different. You make a mistake, or you're in trouble, you're out. And I think what he's tried to do with Dele is the same thing he did, which succeeded with Ndombele, which is buck your ideas up or you're out. And Ndombele has taken that.
He's some player in when he wants to.
Ndombele never had the Pochettino kind of the love from Pochettino to go back on, so he's only really knows the Mourinho way, really. So I think it's been a bit of a culture shock for Dele. Same with Winks, that I'm not going to keep my place in the team just because the manager likes me. I've got to work for it. And I think the Amazon documentary, Mourinho said he was lazy in training. That's not going to do any favours with Mourinho there. And hopefully the Wolfsburger game. I mean, you've got to have some confidence to try an overhead kick.
Yeah, sure. Listen, the talent there with Dele Alli. I mean, 2 seasons ago he was unbelievable, wasn't he? He was flying, and I think we all know that there's that player there. And I'd like to see him at the Euros because I think he does in an England shirt. I mean, you've got to look at Jesse Lingard. That move has done him just the world of good. And
I also think with Dele as well that certain players, certain systems and managers and teams suit. You look at Salah, for example, at Chelsea did nothing. He's gone to Liverpool now, who Liverpool base their whole game on getting the strikers involved. I think for Dele, Eriksen was a big player. I think Eriksen was a number 10, but had the license to pretty much go anywhere. Like, how many times did you see Eriksen as a number 10 picking it up off Vertonghen or Alderweireld's foot? It leaves that huge, massive space there. I think Dele's far better off the ball than he is on. I don't think his pass is good enough.
100% agree with you. 100% agree with you.
When he's got that space, you looked at the 2 goals in, I think, the 16-17 season at home against Chelsea, where he's ghosted in and headers. But I think with Mourinho's play, it's obviously a sit back and then counter. I'm not sure where Dele fits in there. So I think it's kind of culture shock with a Pochettino to Jose, and I've got to change my game. You look at Kane. Kane's completely changed his game, really. But we don't have an Eriksen now. We have a striker who is also our playmaker.
Yeah. So because Lo Celso's been out injured for so bloody long.
So
he's a player that I'm not sure on because we've not seen. I feel like that he is a good player, Lo Celso, but I can't. It's like a rhythm thing.
There's glimpses, There's glimpses of something special, but he's with the injuries. He's not been able to give himself a run. You know, you saw the couple of European games he came into sort of, early doors before the injury, and he played some really nice football. But I think he's another one of those. He needs a bit. He needs to run. He needs his confidence up, and he needs to shirk off this injury, and give himself a proper run at things. I think he could. Yeah, he could have the potential to be best.
I think going on Lo Celso as well. I think he's more of a driver midfielder, so you get the ball and run forward. Whereas I think that Southampton game and Man United game and Kane and Son so devastating. I think it's said to teams, we can't really go massively toe-to-toe with them because those two will kill us. So they kind of sit back a little more, and then there's not that much room for those kind of drivey players. Ndombele is a driver kind of player, but then he's got so much skill to literally shake off 3 people who are around him in one turn. He's
Dembele. He's a bit of a Dembele, isn't he? Dembele, the Dembele
midfielders that don't really fit into how Mourinho wants to play. And where's
go on, Scott?
Where's a playmaker like Eriksen?
Yeah, I was just going to say, lads. I think that players like Dele Alli and Gareth Bale are sort of more suited to managers that maybe sort of put an arm around them and, maybe give them a bit of loving rather than what Mourinho does, which is a bit of a tough loving, really.
I think with Dele, yes, because probably from joining Tottenham as a late teen, I think that's he got that because of his age. Yeah. And again, going back to what Chris said earlier, it's all he knows, and I think that's why it's been such a big shock having Jose come in, who's saying, "Oh, you're 20 something now, mate. You do the job, or you do one." Whereas I don't know. I think Mourinho does have that softer side to him. I think a lot of it is camera persona. But at the same time, I think he's one of those. It's cross me and I'll do you. Without hesitation. We only see one side of Mourinho, and it's the same side he wants to portray. And he plays the media so well. We don't know what he's actually really like behind closed doors.
That's true.
Sorry, Andy. I was just going to say that I don't know how Spurs fans feel, but I get the feeling that, and I don't think it can be underestimated what Pochettino did. He took you from a sort of 6th, 7th place team to a consistent Champions League team. But do you think that some Spurs fans are maybe still sort of hung up on him leaving?
I think that how fickle our fan base can be. I think they forget when, because me and Chris and you guys are probably old enough to remember when Spurs were mid-table dross. It was 3-point lane. It was, we all we hoped for was a good cup run. You know, and I think a lot of them do. We've got a lot of younger fans now who only really remember the Pochettino way.
Yeah.
And then we've got the older fans who think this is the Tottenham that I've always believed we have. And the Pochettino way was everything. You know, it was Spurs coming back to it. And now all of a sudden we've stagnated a bit and kind of gone back 15 years, back to that kind of, you know, oh, well, yeah, Tottenham could produce something. But and I think there's a lot of negativity around the fan base because they got spoiled. We got spoiled, in my opinion, with Pochettino. But they need to remember when we were, you know, mid-table dross going to Ellen Road and, you know, getting having a really tough game, but walking away with a 3-1 win because Anderton put in a belter, you know, a couple of belters that game. I was there. That's the only reason I bring it up.
In his 15 games that he ever played, because I mean, he had so much talent. Yeah. God, he went injured a lot, wasn't he? Jesus.
He was. But that for me, I just think they're spoiled and they've got this rose tinted. Yeah, they've got this rose tinted.
Do you know when you say though, with Pochettino that you were kind of spoiled with him, but you know, it goes back to that old thing again that you didn't win anything, and it's so, you know, you're so close with the Champions League. But I want to know, with you guys being Spurs fans, Arsenal have gone through a really crappy transition period, but yet they've still managed to win a trophy. It must frustrate you being a Spurs fan because they've been dreadful, and somehow they managed to pull that FA Cup. I swear that they've got dibs in that.
And it's Charity Shield as well.
Yeah, like they do seem to win it, and I think when I'm going for this, it's that winner's mentality, that the fact that they have consistently won. I remember not so long ago, I was speaking to Jonathan Woodgate, and he got the goal that won you the cup. I remember saying to him, do you think they'll kick on? Like, you know, this was only probably about 3 or 4 years after. And he was like, I just don't think they will. He says, I don't know. He said, I just have this feeling that they won't. And sure enough, now we're probably about 8 or 9 years on from that, you know, from that conversation. And sure enough, we're in this boat again. But me and Scott have said you're a couple of players away from being
the problem we've got.
Such a good player, you know,
you're
such
right.
a good team. Sorry,
but without investment, and this is one of my biggest things. You look at all the managers Tottenham have had. Granted, we had Christian, whatever his name, with his train ticket. You know, he was but you know, we had Martin Yeo, we had Redknapp. We've had, you know, we had even George Graham. You know, he knew how to set his teams out. We've had some fantastic managers. Right, we've had some fantastic players, you know, going back to when I started supporting Tottenham with Anderton, with, you know, Mabbott at the back, with Gazza and Lineker, and then moving forward through to your Ledley Kings, your Ginolas, your Klinsmans, your Sheringhams, and, you know, to what we've got now. The only consistent factor is ENIC and Daniel Levy. You know, you say we're a couple of players away. How much more would Levy? Because I think one of the biggest problems we've got moving forward is I think this summer is going to be more expensive for Levy if he keeps Mourinho than if he gets rid of him. Because Alderweireld is another year older.
He should have sold him. He should have sold him, by the way. I thought that when Vertonghen had gone, I thought that should have been the time. We've said it should have been to freshen up that, and that should have gone. And how Aurier.
But you look at who we've got though. But this is the problem. You look at Dyer's not up to scratch. Nope. Sanchez isn't up to scratch. How much more would it have? You know, Rodon. I rate him. I think he's a raw talent. I think he's going to be fantastic. But he's not there yet. How much extra would? But how much would a Levy have to have paid out extra to get Skriniar? An extra $5 million. To be fair, to put him in, right? Get rid of Toby. Get rid of Jan. Bring him in. All right, and even play him alongside Rodon or Dyer, you know, someone who's young enough to have at least a good 3, 4, 5 seasons in him as a top centre back, but we didn't do it, and now I think we're paying the price for that. We've got, you know, going back, and we go back to we've got too many midfielders who don't quite play the right way. We should have taken a few of those out to create a bit more money to bring in the right players. Yeah. But I think the problem is, and the one consistent thing that I think is a hindrance to Tottenham is ENIC and how tight they are.
That's a good point that you make, actually, Gareth, because over the last 20 years, I've always felt that Spurs have got to a point where you think, wow, what a great season you've had there. Right, now invest. Now, you know, you may be a couple of positions short of pushing for the title. And it's just never been there.
And this is probably what Woodgate knew. Now, of course, they won't push on because Levy ain't going to loosen the purse strings enough. You know, rummaging for bargain basement deals. Højbjerg, don't get me wrong, was cracking, right? Great, you know, you look effectively 3 million by the time you look at what they paid for Kyle Walker-Peters.
Yeah.
But how many times, you know, how often do you find, you know, a gem in the rough? You know, when you're going through that bargain bucket, you don't, mate. Unless it's a KFC bargain bucket where everyone's a winner, you ain't getting nothing.
Look at Leicester's system, though, what they've kind of had over the last 5 years when they won the title. I don't think anyone thought that they were going to go on and retain it or whatnot. But what they have done is, I think, and I think Scott agrees with me on this, they've tried to progress every year by getting that one or two players that's going to really improve them. Like maybe what we've said, like what Scott just said there. All right, you're so close now, add something. And I think like Tielemans, you know, Tottenham, why wouldn't Spurs, you know, I know they had Eriksen, I know you had Eriksen, but, you know.
Even in that season that you guys got to the Champions League final, correct me if I'm wrong, in that season and the January and the August before, you bought nobody.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, you didn't buy anyone,
but this is another thing for me. You look at, like you said about Leicester, you know, apart from Jamie Vardy and maybe one or two others in the team who are at the older end of the footballing spectrum, right? You've got a group of reasonably aged young lads who are able to grow. And if you look at the team that finally won the league for Leicester, they'd been together, 2, 3, 4 years? Now, you look, okay, you could say, well, look back at the Tottenham team when Delhi first came in with a young Harry, a young Delhi and all that, where we came third in a 2-horse race, you know, where we should have done Leicester probably that year to win the title. But this was what we were missing. They had the older head of Vardy and, you know, players of the like, whereas we just had a group of youngsters and a manager who had won nothing. You know, they had Claudio Ranieri, who had experience of winning. They had the older head on their shoulders, you know, to be able to help keep the young lads together, keep them grounded. Vardy, who'd started in non-league and is now playing at the top flight. I think it's all about having the right combination, the right mixture of age, experience, you know, and backgrounds. And I think that's the one thing that we missed during the Pochettino era. He was too keen on youngsters. Whereas I reckon, you know, if we'd had the Tottenham team under Poch, but we'd have had David Ginola, Robbie Keane, Ledley King in that squad, I think it would have been a totally different ballgame because of the experience.
Chris, obviously you got a World Cup captain in Hugo Lloris. I'm not a fan. I think he's been well off the boil for quite a while now. I think the injury to his arm, has not done him any good. But he doesn't seem to. I don't know. He doesn't seem to lead to me, and he's got a bit of chocolate risk going on as well. If you have the chance, I think Dean Henderson is quite linked with you guys, and I think he is a fantastic goalkeeper. And I know it's not just we spoke about their Dias, but we all know that you've got to have a good keeper. Even in that Leicester season, Kasper Schmeichel was fantastic, and it does start from the back. If you had a chance to get Dean Henderson, would you take him at Spurs? Do you think he is, that take you up?
I would. I think because I agree with you with Lloris. I mean, after the restart, he was superb again. And when he first joined us for the first few seasons, he was superb. And then he's obviously made quite a few mistakes and they've crept back in. But I think the issue is to even Dean Henderson, to get a goalkeeper, you're spending tens of millions of pounds, which I'm not sure a goalkeeper is our biggest issue. I think defence is an absolute...
I agree.
And if Kane does go, then a striker then becomes hugely important. And I still think a playmaker is what we need as well. So with this whole COVID thing, we had a load of gigs and concerts and fights at the ground, which would obviously create a lot of money.
I missed out on the Guns N' Roses one. I'm devastated by that.
I'm going to that one 3 days before we're out of lockdown, so I don't know what will happen with that. But anyway, if they can go on...
It'll be just you, Chris. It'll be just you in the stadium.
I'll be able to get a drink there without having to queue up. That'd be lovely. So if they go on, that will obviously create a lot of money. I think... But with Levy, he's always looking for a bargain. You think we had Grealish for 25 million.
You were there, wanting 25 million?
We had Fernandes for 45 million. He only... And with Eriksen said he wanted to leave. He should have been out of the club then. We'd have got, 60 million pounds. He leaves it because he wants all this money, gets 17, and then it's
20, wasn't it? Yeah.
Same with Danny Rose. And with Eriksen there, not wanting to play, with all the best will in the world, I don't think Ericsson is one of these. Well, I'm not playing. I'm refusing to play. But the fact he wants to go is going to have a negative effect in that dressing room. So he needs to go, and he needs to be replaced. He was one of our most crucial players at the time, and he didn't want to be there. So get him out and get someone in who is. But I think as long as Daniel Levy is making transfer decisions there, we're always going to struggle with this. I think getting Lloris at the time for £9 million, a top country's captain for 9 million, I think he's suddenly thought I can bargain with anyone here.
Yeah.
And
I've said this to Chris.
Grealish has shown that. Well, we don't care whether you can bargain or not. This is the price he's going for. You either pay it or you don't get him. And then look what he's done at Man United now. Fernandes. If we'd have had him, I mean, that could have been the difference.
Yeah. It's just that one player that sort of change.
But I don't want to bash too much because he has done a lot of good for us. I just think with transfer dealings, he needs to get someone to do that and not do it.
Well, a world-class stadium, a world-class training facility don't win your trophies.
No, absolutely not.
No, I agree.
But going back to what Chris was,
he did take a chance on Pochettino, which has obviously what Pochettino did as well has given us the chance to get Mourinho, and he has put his hand in his pocket to get players 60 odd million for Ndombele and 40 for Lascelles. So it's just I don't think they're the players the manager wanted, and I think.
But putting his hand in his pocket, Chris, is few and far between. Sadly, it's all well and good that he paid that 60 million, but when you're not paying anything for the next two transfer windows, it's irrelevant.
Yeah. I think Spurs as well at the minute.
Pochettino wanted and we didn't get, and I mean he wanted Mane when he was at Southampton, and we went and got Ng. Sure, he's good footballer of Ng, but he ain't Mane level, is he? And Mane went for 30 million there, which in the grand scheme of things, even though I don't know how long he's been at Liverpool, 5 years ago or whatever. It's
5 years.
Yeah.
I think Spurs are in a dangerous position at the minute because I feel like you've got maybe 5 or 6 players who are pretty much dead wood at the minute. And I think, you don't want to become that team who becomes like, they're going through a transition period, because that transitional period could be a 4, 5, 6, or in Arsenal's case, a 15-year transitional period.
Yeah, this is true.
But they still won a trophy, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I still think that if Spurs, I don't think you're going to win the League Cup, because I think Man City are just. I watched them today, and they were unbelievable again. I mean, John Stones has turned into prime. Yeah, but I mean, it depends. If you can get, listen, you've got Gareth Bale, who we haven't really even touched on that, because I mean, he's only really just started playing in these last couple of games where he kind of looks like that Bale that we saw before. But the Europa League is a competition that Mourinho won with a Man U team that he said getting second place was one of his best achievements, because I think they were kind of like a Spurs at that time, where they weren't knocking on all doors and smashing them down. They were just okay, but he still went and won a trophy with them. I think in a one-off game, Mourinho can get you over the line. I actually think you've got more chance of winning the Europa League than you have, with the cup. But Gareth Bale, just really quickly on him. Do you think now he needs a run of games? Have we come to this point now where he's been there 16 years, and I think he's it feels like it because he hasn't been playing. But we obviously know what kind of I think as fans you weren't getting the Gareth Bale of 2009, 10, 11 and whatnot. However, it looks like he's coming into a bit of form. Now you get him going in the Europa League and boom, you might win it. Dele Alli's back,
I'd be quite upset if he's not playing against Burnley, because he started and played the majority of every Europa League game against Wolfsburg. He came on after 68 minutes. So that says to me that you're starting. And that West Ham game, but before that, I listened to your Mourinho honeymoon over episode, and that was before the West Brom game, which wasn't that many games ago. And you basically said what a lot of us are thinking, like what's happened to him. And I thought he'd lost the love for football. I was just, I'll wait until I'm retired. I'm getting 500 grand a week or whatever, then I'll play golf and do. But that West Ham game, he came on. He was looking for the ball.
It looked so good.
I'll be honest. I never thought he lost the love. I do. I genuinely thought he had a psychology. He'd been so injury prone over the last 2-3 years. I genuinely think he had a mental thing, where he was scared of getting injured again, because let's be honest, he's at that age now where one good hit is probably going to do it. That'll be it. That'll be done. You know, there's no swan song season wherever he wants to be. And I do. And if he's got his mentality right, if he's now thinking to himself, I'm not made of glass, you know, I'm feeling as good as I've ever done, then, and I think that potentially is playing a part in things as well. Do I think he needs to start against Burnley? I want him to start. But because if he's only just getting his mentality right, are Burnley too tough a team to play against? Because they are a very physical, like Leeds are a very, you know, the old Leeds anyway, very physical.
Yeah.
You know, is that potentially the wrong game to maybe start him in, maybe bring on for the last half hour when, you know, it's so for me, that's kind of, for me with Bale, I think as long as he's over his mental thing of, you know, getting injured, but is Burnley the right game?
Can I just say though?
I think
with the Gareth Bale thing, when he's been coming on, I would rather see if he is only 60%, 70% fit or whatnot, start a game and come off after 60 minutes. Maybe get that lead, get him on, and then your Højbjergs of the world then can do the dirty work.
But he was still. But you look when that happened, he was missing half a yard. In the first couple of games where he sort of came on, he was missing that half yard. He wasn't. Now, I agree, but. You know, back then, you give him that run of games, you're actually putting yourself as, you might as well play with 10 men because he had that lack of, you know, the lack of the confidence, that half a yard pace, the lack of match fitness. So, you know, maybe he is only here for half, you know, to technically play for half a season, you know, with getting himself
but
back.
if you win the Europa League,
produce, I ain't going to, yeah, exactly. It's still going to be the best thing I ever did, turning up at the
just quickly. I think we'll have to try and get you back on because it's fascinating speaking to you about it. But we'll try and do a part 2. But just on the Harry Kane thing, if he does go, would you look to Europe or would you look to like a Calvert-Lewin who's had a storming season? And would he be a player that, you know, people might turn your nose up, but look what Ancelotti's done to him, and he's walking with that swag. You remember when Jordan Henderson turned from like to all of a sudden owning a football pitch? I think Ancelotti's done the same with Calvert-Lewin.
I wouldn't turn my nose up at him at all. I think he'd be a fantastic buy. He's young enough, he's hungry enough, and I think, especially with a manager like Mourinho, he needs young, adaptable, versatile players, and I think he would fit the mould. I think Tottenham's style of play would have to change dramatically to accommodate him. To like someone like him. But no, I wouldn't. I'll be honest. I wouldn't care who we got as long as it did the business. You know,
well, obviously, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They could pull somebody from, you know, I don't know. Let's pull a random team, Derby. You know, they could have a great season in the championship. They're not, but let's say that season when under Lampard and they had their couple of strikes. Look at Brentford. You know, that lad who went to West Ham. You know, I would have quite liked
Ben Rama.
Very, very I think he would have been. He's only been a backup at West Ham. Yeah, Ollie Watkins has been superb. So it doesn't matter where they come from as long as they do the job. You know, and that Levy is, as previously said, doesn't sit there and go, well, we'll get him because he's £5 million dearer, but he's going to be no use. He's £5 million cheaper. You know,
couple of minutes left, lads. The Premier League this season, is it Man City wrapped up, done, dried?
I think it's there.
Get ready, champions elect.
I think they're. I think to be fair, they've got to win the Premier League because I don't see them winning the Champions League. I think they're like Tottenham in any cup game. They're like Tottenham in any cup. Bottle it right at the last. Right, for whatever reason, Man City can't get over the line when it comes to the Champions League. So I think they need to focus on the FA Cup, focus on the Premier League. You know, they'll be happy with 2 trophies. The Carabao Cup will come home to us.
They can still go the League Cup. They don't need to worry about that this season.
It's the League Cup is where it's at in it, you know.
Yeah.
But
that's it, mate. Yeah, well, and the Europa League, I think we're.
Even if they didn't turn up for the League Cup, we'd still struggle, wouldn't we?
Because Kane will come back 60% fit, mate. He'll be all right.
Yeah. But listen, like, it's been great chatting to you, lads. I hope, you know, we get you back on again, and you know. But just before I go, I just want to ask you your opinions on Leeds' first season back up since 2004. What have you thought of us? Only a minute each, so Chris, go on, give us what you thought about Leeds.
Very entertaining, and you talk about Calvert-Lewin with what Ancelotti's done to him. Bamford was pretty much no Premier League before, and then he's almost, you know, he's definitely in the conversation for the Euros, isn't he? And then that Rafinha is I do like him.
Very good. Yeah. Don't look at him too much. He's ours. Leave him.
When
Come
you come
on.
up, the whole thing of when you come up is staying in the league, and then each season it's progressing and progressing and progressing. But
I mean, listen, it's been good. I mean, I think we're 2 points behind you boys or whatnot. Listen, if you'd have given me that at the start of the season, I'd have snapped your hands off.
If Spurs had given us a better pitch, we'd probably be about 5 points better off.
Jesus, that pitch that you're giving us. It's an ice rink. It's like dancing on ice every Sunday today. I think I was going to ask Paddy Power what the odds were for people like actually staying on the feet for more than 5 minutes. It was ridiculous again today. It was just unbelievable. But no, but seriously, lads, thanks for coming on. We'll definitely get back on again. It was, it's been really interesting hearing, like the fans, because, we've missed the fans this year in the stadium, and hopefully next year we'll be able to meet in the flesh when we come down and check out that new stadium.
That's one of the reasons I'm glad. It's one of the reasons I'm glad you guys are doing so well this season. For you boys, Ellen Road's a brilliant ground. I've been there a couple of times, and the fan base that you guys have is fantastic. And for you guys to have missed out on seeing them in the Premier League this season, I think would, for any fan, but for Leeds especially, would have been heartbreaking. So I'm really pleased that you've had a good season, and that hopefully you're going to be second season in the Premier League, but with your fans next time.
Yeah. Good man. Chris, Gareth, thank you very much. Give us a follow. Give these guys a follow. They're absolutely brilliant. We'll put the links on YouTube and whatnot. But lads, thanks for coming on, and we will speak to you very, very soon.
Cheers, boys. It's been a pleasure.
See you later, guys.